Well, I can tell you that our guest speaker tonight is a very, very dear friend of mine. And I wanted to read her bio, and some of you don't even know who this speaker is tonight. But her bio is that she was born and raised in the western Pennsylvania area near Pittsburgh. She's been married to Terry. She was married to Terry 3 days before her 18th birthday and spent 22 years as an Army wife. She was involved in numerous ministries through PWOC, Protestant Women of the Chapel, and their local church. And in 2007, due to the injuries Terry received in 2004 and the impact on their family, she got involved in nonprofit and advocacy for wounded warriors, their spouses, and disabled veterans. She is a mother of three amazing children, and I concur. And she's been married to Terry Safran, everyone's favorite studio guy, for 24 years. Colleen and I began working on an idea, or she presented an idea to me back when we were going to do the Pumped conference. And it was just so incredible, and it stuck with me. And I knew that for the August BFF, she was our speaker. And I know that what she's going to share with us tonight, I just pray that you open your heart and just receive as you're receiving from a girlfriend, because that's who she is. She's everyone's friend. So Colleen, come on up and share with us. Y'all give her a hand.
Hi. Well, thank you for having me. I will admit, I don't usually do the local crowd, so this is kind of new. But as Pastor Marcia said, this is something that's really been on my heart, probably, back in February maybe. It really sat on my heart, and I wanted to share it with you. So I'm going to start with this. Anyone that attends our church, that attends Faith Point, will know this about me, but I'm a shoe girl. And when I say I'm a shoe girl, I'm a shoe girl. I love a great pair of shoes. But there's something about shoes that if they don't fit well, your whole body will be miserable. Am I right? I mean, now, your hip might not know that the problem is your shoe is too tight on your small toe, but after walking wrong for a while, it'll figure it out. Something's wrong. Something's off. The fit is wrong. And it's funny that when a fit is wrong, your whole body gets slightly off kilter. And so how is shoes spiritual? Because we're the body of Christ. So when we're not fit, then something will be off. And when I say fit, I want to say that I mean faithful, inspiring, and trustworthy. Are we fit? Because we're called to these things. We're called to these things as a part of the body of Christ, locally, globally. But not only that, this is something we need to do as humans. We live in a world where people just aren't that way all the time. And we lament it, we talk about how much we miss it, but we're still not that same way ourselves. So what I want to talk to you about is how we can be a good fit. So the first thing we want to look at is faithful. Faithful is an adjective. It describes a noun, a person, a place, or a thing. Tonight, you're the noun. It's you. I, Colleen, am faithful. That adjective is for me. Faithful in Webster says, strict or thorough in the performance of duty. True to one's word, promises, and vows. Steady in allegiance or affection. Loyal, constant. Constant is the word that has really, really resounded with me. So to be faithful is to be constant. Being constant is life-giving, and I'm going to read to you from Proverbs 13, 14, and 15. I found little shoe clips to put on my Bible pages. How cool is that? Anyway, it made me happy. So Proverbs 13, 14, and 15 says, the teaching of the wise is a fountain of life, turning a person from the snares of death. Good judgment wins favor, but the way of the unfaithful leads to their destruction. We don't stop and think about being faithful is literally life-giving for us. And it is. And it's not just life-giving for us, but it's life-giving for those around us. How many here want a husband that is only faithful when he wants to be? I'm just saying. I mean, I had a bad day, work stunk. I don't feel like being faithful tonight. See, that doesn't sit too well with any of us. Or how about a God that's only faithful when he feels like it? Look, you messed up again. I saw you flip off that guy on the road. How can I be faithful to you tonight? We don't want a husband that's faithful when he feels like it. We don't want a God that's faithful when he feels like it. But how often do we find we are only faithful in our words and our deeds when we feel like it? I can read half of y'all's Facebook. I know we all go there. I mean, we do. We get angry or we get, out of sorts, and all of a sudden, faithful doesn't matter anymore. Even when we're angry, even when we're frustrated, even when we're hurt, even when we're right and that other person is wrong, we are called to be faithful. That is our calling, that is our duty. And you know what? That is our honor because it's our life. The word says it's life-giving. The way of the unfaithful leads to death, which means the faithful, they're living. Pastor always says there's only two kingdoms, life and death. I want life. I want abundant life. So the Lord tells us that he wants us constant, and a good fit is doing what is honoring to God because that's what the Lord expects of us. And in Hebrews 12:14, I actually, when we came back from vacation, and I realized that Pastor was teaching out of Hebrews so much, I was so happy. That's actually where a lot of what I got out of this came from. Of course, my clip fell out because I was too involved in the cute shoe. But in Hebrews 12:14, and let me get there. This is a new Bible. It says, make every effort to live in peace with everyone and to be holy. Without holiness, no one will see the Lord. You can't make an effort to live with people in peace if you're not a faithful person, because that means you're doing what's right even when you don't want to. It's before anything happens. You're already choosing faithfulness. So we need to be faithful in word, in deed, in service. Luke 6:27 through 36. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I am going to read 31 through 33. It says, do to others as you would have them do to you. These are red letters. Red letters. That means Jesus is saying them. It says, if you love those who love you, what credit is that to you? Even sinners love those who love them. And if you do good to those who are good to you, what credit is that to you? Even sinners do that. It seems so easy to be faithful when we're feeling it and when we're loving everyone and everyone's our friend. But what about when they make you mad? What about when something happens? What about when they're a frenemy? I find it amazing there are whole books on the word frenemy, which is your friend enemy. That I'm not sure it's a word I picked up from my daughters. But we need to be faithful in those things, in word, in deed, in giving, in service, in care for others, and in concern. So the next thing we're going to look at is inspiring. When I was first saved, I'm not going to go into my story because, it just gets complicated. But when I was first saved, I met someone shortly after we moved to Hinesville, Georgia, and her name was Libby Hodge. And Libby Hodge is one of those people that you cannot walk away from an encounter with this woman and not feel good. She was the first person I met in my life that I could say was a truly gracious lady. And I loved Libby. I still love Libby. I still keep in touch with her. Libby is my inspiration in parenting. But she inspired me to be a better person because, not that anyone would believe this, but I was one of those young Army wives with a chip on my shoulder. I was used to being judged the minute I walked into somewhere. I was 22 with 3 kids. I was used to it. maybe change something in the way I thought about other women and the way I thought about people. I wanted people to leave my presence and feel like I felt like after I talked to Libby. Because you always felt good. Even when she corrected you, you felt good. Inspiring people, think right now, who's someone that inspires you? And please don't tell me a rock star. Someone that actually inspires you. There was a water up here. I'm sorry. Can someone hand me my water bottle right there? Think about someone that inspires you. One person. Thank you. What is it that they inspire? How is it? What is it about them that makes you say, I want to be like that. I want that. I want to feel that way, and I want others to feel that way in my presence. What is it? I looked this up. Excuse me. Texas and allergies, just for Western night. I looked this up on like one of those MSN things where they did a survey on what is it about inspiring people, or what characteristics do they have. And there were 4 different characteristics. 1, inspiring people achieve goals. They achieve goals. Whether they're huge goals or small goals, they achieve goals. Inspiring people overcome obstacles in order to achieve their goal. Usually you're not inspired by somebody that they hand them the home run. You're inspired by the guy that ran all the way around. Well, that got that totally wrong, baseball. Yeah, but I mean, you're inspired by the guy that runs the bases. Or else they just hit that ball out of the park and stand there because they already got the score. So the next thing is they participate and engage not only in their challenge, but with the people that help them overcome and achieve. So that doesn't mean they just sit and draw from them. They engage in them, with them. They learn from them. They get things from them, and they give back. They're inspiring people. And the last one was, they did a survey of people that others had said were inspiring to them. It says, they surround themselves with people who help them achieve what they're trying to overcome. Inspiring people have other inspiring people in their lives. It's a cycle. It's just like negativity. It's a cycle. And we're going to go to Hebrews again. And this is 10, 24, and 25. This was actually a theme for PWC in the 90s, I think. And it was early on for me, and I thought, oh, this is awesome. Who would have thought? But God knows He's asked us to do something that might not necessarily be with our nature, but we still have to do it. And it says in 24, and let us consider how we may spur one another on toward love and good deeds, not giving up meeting together as some are in the habit of doing, but encouraging one another. And all the more as you see the day approaching. This is an intentional thing. This is not something that just happens. How many of you have lost it with someone and said, I'm just being real? How many people have shown someone and said, well, I'm not going to be fake? You know, I had this like great moment. And it was, to be kind and courteous and loving toward other people, whether they're your best friend or not, isn't fake and it's not being real. It's a command of God. And if we want to be women who inspire, how many want to inspire their children or the people they work with? What about the neighbor? I mean, who do you want to inspire? I want everyone to feel something when they've left my presence. How do I do that? I consider how I can do it. I go against my human nature, which might be hey, I'm like anyone else. I get rude. I have a bad temper. Not that anyone would believe that. As my daughters sit there going. But it was a work in progress. It is a constant work in progress. But it says, let us consider. Let us consider. Do you ever stop to think before you meet with someone or talk to someone? Do you ever consider how you can spur them on to good works? Do you ever stop and think, how can I spur you on? What can I do for my sister, for my brother, to spur them on? My nature is not to encourage people. No one's is. Because it says we have a fallen nature, and then when we're born again, and Jesus comes in, what happens? He turns our nature into his. It's a slow process, but I promise you, if you will discipline yourself to do it, it will happen. I don't know many women. We actually talked about this in our small group, and Diana said it best. She goes, I don't want to be the crabby old lady. I want to be the sweet old lady everybody loves. That's what I want too, but I can't do that if I don't consider how I can spur each other, my friends, my sisters, the people I don't know. And what about that last part that said, encouraging one another? Meet together and encourage one another. Meet together for coffee. Meet together and do nothing but sit at a park. Meet together and walk. Meet together and do anything. But when you do it, encourage people. Do you know there really is a way to correct people and you don't have to destroy them? I told my kids this. They hate this line. I will stick with this though. There are always two things you can do. You can be constructive or you can be destructive. You can do it with your anger. You can do it with your words. You can do it with everything. You can construct something and build, or you can destroy it. That power lies in your mouth. It's not being fake, folks. It's called courtesy and kindness. And my friend, her name is Wendy Walters, and she's another one of those people. She just says all these amazing things. She's an author, and she's on Facebook too, so Wendy K. Walters. But she put this up the other day, and this really made me think. It says, what is it that makes us lean towards judgment? We see someone unlovely or whose actions offend us or whose life's choices are a travesty. But instead of compassion, the first response is usually criticism. I want to become more intentional with a response of compassion, seeing people through the eyes of love, searching for their potential, understanding there is way more to their story than I'll ever know. Preservation of core values does not require a critical spirit. I'll tell you, that one got me because it's easy to slip into that, well, if they just do what I said, if they just do the right thing, if they just make the right choice. Is that inspiring? Pastor Scott just taught a series. You can go to faithpoint.ws and you can look at it. It was on the point of no return. And he talked about framing your world. But here's the thing, you don't just frame your world when you start speaking. You can frame someone else's world. And you can do it with one sentence. I have a young woman, and I'm just going to throw this out there. I have a young woman that I did not know I had an impact on. She was here for a brief period of time. I met her through an online program. She came to Life Group. We have an amazing Life Group starting up for our military and contractors' wives in the fall. She would come. She was not our denomination. As a matter of fact, when I invited her to PWOC, she said, I'm not Protestant, I'm Baptist. I was like, okay. But you know what, she ended up coming here, and she ended up coming to Life Group, and she started writing. She has a blog with a ton of followers called Beautiful in His Time, and she's talking about her walk out of legalism and finding real grace. I didn't even know I had touched her life. I had no clue. I thought I was someone in passing. If I hadn't considered how to inspire her, where would she be? That scares me a little. Because that means all of us have that power somewhere in our lives, and what we do with that power makes a difference in eternity. So don't think you're just framing your world, you're framing others. And our last one is trustworthy. I'm going to tell a story. There was a husband and wife that went on a trip to the outback, wildlands, bushlands, Alaska. And they're on a path. And on that path, the terrain is terrible. There's a guide, but the guide is way ahead of them. The guide is way ahead. And the wife is the next one in line, and she's trying to get her way through this wilderness, and it's nothing like she knows. And there's bogs with quicksand, and there's water, and there's all of this stuff, and she just can't get her footing. And she keeps getting more flustered and tripping and getting angry because she's not there. And finally, her husband, who's behind her, says, let me go first. And because this husband was so trustworthy, because this husband has never led her wrong, All she did was let him go first. For whatever reason, he understood where the guide was going, and she put her head down, and she just followed his footsteps. Followed right in them. I'll tell you, that was me, and that happened to me in Alaska in June. I was behind the guide. I could not see where he was. My husband came in front of me, and my husband has never steered me wrong. And all I did was place my feet in his footsteps. I had no problem. And let me tell you, I fell in, Alaska has quicksand. It is not a hot place thing. It is a cold place thing, too. I fell in a puddle. I'm in waders and boots up to here. I couldn't even get out. My husband had to help me out. And I put my head down. But the point was, my husband has always been trustworthy. The guide ahead was trustworthy. The question is, if you're guiding someone and they find themselves having to follow in your footsteps, are you trustworthy? Can they follow in your steps? Can they walk in each step and know that they don't even have to put their head up? Because, there's a lot of times in life when you don't have the energy to look ahead. And trying to look ahead will overwhelm you. But if you've just got someone in front of you that you can just step, I'm telling you now, you will get where you need to go. It always works because it's not just a physical thing. It's a spiritual principle as well. The Word tells us this. And I'm looking at this. My watch has got to be off. But this is the thing. I went to Alaska on that trip with my husband. I don't know. Unless he flickers the lights at me, as far as I know, we didn't have any major issues. Don't be funny. I know him. But I had no major issues. But this one little incident changed my life because it reminded me that I always need to allow trustworthy people to guide me. It is so easy, and I cannot emphasize this enough, to get steered away. For every good and perfect thing God has created for you, the enemy will send you a counterfeit. And that counterfeit, and if you are sitting in here and it sounds too Christian-like, think about how many times you dated the wrong guy before you dated the right one. But am I on to something here? And that guy that comes along that's the right guy after that, there were so many things that were similar. They were like, oh, well, I can see now how it happened when you sit down and compare them. And everyone says, oh, it's your type and everything. But see, there is something so perfect for you. It doesn't matter who you are. But see, it's because God's trustworthy that you can let go and search for it. We are in the likeness of God. And so, are we trustworthy? Do we want in our lives to be known that way? I can say this much now. Most of you, how many here are in a profession that has mentors? It's pretty common, isn't it? They understand the concept in the world of mentoring. They understand the concept of leading people the right way. And when you have a mentor, they're usually someone that's way better than you at what you want to do, and they're at a place where you aspire to go, right? We have those in the body of Christ, too. But when you have a mentor, if you sit down with your mentor, as a teacher, and she looks at you, she goes, well, I hate the little rugrats. I don't want to be around them. I just do this for the paycheck. That's not going to inspire you to pursue your field. I'm not saying anything on that one, but I'm just saying it's not going to work. You don't want someone to lead you in teaching young children that doesn't like children. You don't want a nurse that hates her job being the mentor for a nurse who is learning. You don't want a football coach that stinks and doesn't understand the game. He's got to be better than the players. He doesn't necessarily have to play better. He has to get the whole picture better. Do you get the whole picture tonight? We are in a time and in a place in life where these aren't the norm anymore. You know, being a faithful person, come on, they've got starter marriages. Somebody explain that to me. I actually read an article on starter marriages. It is an intentional choice to have a starter marriage that lasts 5 to 7 years. I guess so you can learn about it. I'm not sure what you learn if you fail at it. But they have them, right? Because faithful has to do with your feelings. I didn't go into my marriage saying, well, you know, in 5 years we're going to look at this again, see if we still like each other. I'm sure at 5 years he probably sat there going, what did I get myself into? But it was the point that faithful isn't normal anymore. To be inspiring isn't normal. And I'll tell you, I love little funny things. I love irony. I see the opposites in everything. And so I make analogies in my mind, and some of them are a little odd. And I enjoy that, but I'm not mean. I do everything in my power to try not to be mean. But I have noticed there is such a spirit of meanness. But what about if we inspire someone? And I'm telling you now, this does not have to be big. This is sitting there with someone, and instead of when they say, you know what, I just don't think I can do it, you can look at them and say, but you can. Why can you? Because I'm faithful to you. I'm committed to encouraging you. You know why? Because I sat down and I thought about it. I considered it. How can I spur you on? We need to begin to act with intentionality. We need to address our relationships with an intentionality. One, that all people are valuable. And that I am better than what the enemy has. And that I will be a fit person. Because when I'm in the body, I don't want to be the pair of shoes that rubs your little baby toe and makes you limp. When I'm in the body, I want to be the person that's fit. I want to be a good fit. In the end, being a fit person changes you, and it changes the people you come in contact with. Usually it's not a change you can make on your own, folks. I'm just going to say I tried to be nice numerous times before I ever figured out that God had a pattern for this. It didn't work so good. I did really good until I got mad or something went wrong. How many here have said, I'm going to change the way I eat until the pie comes out? I did it yesterday. Because it doesn't happen overnight. And at some point, I'm going to get intentional about saying no to dessert, but it hasn't happened yet. but that's what I'm saying. It's not something that just happens. And it's not something you're going to do on your own. This is where the whole Jesus thing comes in. Jesus is love, yes, the ultimate expression of love in human form. So much so that he died on a cross for all of us. Not for those of us who were put together, but for everyone. He didn't say, I'm fixing you overnight. He said, my blood will cover it when you don't do it right. It wasn't a matter of just saying, yeah, whatever, you guys are saved, that's good. He said, I'll change your life, and I've come that you may have life and have it more abundantly. Abundant is always a good word when you connect it with life. He is our ultimate example of love. If you want to know what love looks like, I'm way ahead, but sorry. What love looks like, this is what it looks like. If I speak in the tongues of men and angels but have not love, I am only a resounding gong, a clanging cymbal. If I have the gift of prophecy and can fathom all mysteries and all knowledge, and I have a faith that can move mountains but have not love, I am nothing. If I give all I possess to the poor and surrender my body to the flames but have not love, I gain nothing. Love is patient. Love is kind. It does not envy. It does not boast. It is not proud. It is not rude. It is not self-seeking. It is not easily angered. It keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. Love never fails, but where there are prophecies, they will cease. Where there are tongues, they will be stilled. Where there is knowledge, it will pass away. For we know in part, and we prophesy in part. But when perfection comes, the imperfect disappears. When I was a child, I talked like a child, I thought like a child, I reasoned like a child. When I became a man, I put away childish things. Now we see but a poor reflection, as in a mirror. Then we shall see face to face. Now I know in part, then I shall know fully, even as I am fully known. And now these three remain, faith, hope, and love. But the greatest of these is love.